Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. This is Critic Box, and I am your host, Ben Walsh. This week, we are going to chat about Creed 3, directed by Michael B. Jordan himself, and written by the Coogler brothers, Ryan and Keenan. Let me just say, if you saw Ant-Man Quantumania and didn't walk out of there as a big fan of Jonathan Majors, this movie, Creed 3, will put you over the edge. This guy is just so damn authentic, and he commands control in any scene he is in. So, Creed 3 picks up at the end of Adonis Creed's career. He had a legendary and successful run and is considered to be one of the most, if not the best, pound-for-pound fighter of all time. Life is good for Adonis. He has clearly cashed in from his success in the ring along with his wifey, played by Tessa Thompson, who seems to have done well for herself as a singer, now producer. But you knew it couldn't last long, and oh my god, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a wolf knocking on the front door. Adonis's childhood friend and former Golden Glove boxing champion Dame just got out of jail after 18 years, and he pays Adonis a visit. The movie hints at a fateful night where Dame ultimately goes to jail as a result, and Adonis is in some sort of debt to Dame. Dame ultimately comes into the Creed story looking to collect this debt, and the drama really starts rolling from there. So, that is the gist. Let's see what the world's critics have had to say about Creed 3. To start us off, we have a good review from one of the most popular movie critics on YouTube, Chris Stuckmann. Let's see what he has to say.
It's also tough to talk about this movie without acknowledging that Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa is not in the film, and so of course there are going to be people who go to this movie wondering where he is. And there's a lot of things behind the scenes that I'm not privy to that I don't care to discuss. He's talked a lot about issues with a producer who owns Rocky, and he's been very vocal about that, and it sucks to see that someone who created a character doesn't own said character.
Wow, so we found out why Rocky wasn't in it. I thought it had something to do with the storyline, Adonis growing up, not needing Rocky in his corner, but it actually happened outside of the movie itself. It sounds like Rocky had some beef with it sounds like the owner or the rights of this movie. So thank you, Chris, for that interesting information. Can't believe it.
I think Creed 3 is a really entertaining movie. It has great fight sequences that are clearly anime inspired. The movie opens with a flashback where he's young and he's got a Naruto poster on his wall. So clearly he's being upfront about his inspirations for some of these fight scenes, and I love that he is, because so many directors have borrowed from and paid homage to and even stolen from anime in the past, and they never talk about it. They don't acknowledge it. They don't let people know where their inspirations are coming from. They like to make it seem like it's all their original stuff, but Michael B. Jordan has already been very vocal about his anime inspirations, and it's nice to see that we're getting to that point where people who actually love anime and it's been a major part of their life are getting to make films now.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I just found out something new as well, that Michael B. Jordan is an anime fan, and I remember watching the fight scenes during this movie, and they were so unique but unreal, and it makes sense now that I think about Michael B. Jordan being an anime fan, and this gets me even more fired up about the fight scenes, because they were arguably one of the best fight scenes, like boxing fight scenes I've seen ever in the Rocky movies, in Raging Bull, any of the Hurricane, any of the boxing movies out there, the big ones. This was probably the best boxing scenes I've seen. And that is pretty sick that it's all inspired by anime. So let's keep it rolling and see what else he has to say.
But of course, where the movie is most interested in drama is in this relationship with Creed and Damien, and the fact that they have this past that is murky, and there's been issues between the two of them. And Jonathan Majors is truly a revelation in this movie. I saw Ant-Man. A lot of people talked about Kang. The things people said about Kang and Ant-Man, I felt here in Creed 3. I think Jonathan Majors is just marvelous.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Chris here. Ant-Man, he was good as Kang. He stood out. He was this new villain, which I think already helped him out in terms of standing out. But people were raving about him in Ant-Man. I thought he was pretty good. But Creed 3, man, like I said at the top of the show, if you weren't a fan of Mr. Majors after Ant-Man and you come and see Creed 3, this guy, he's next up. I think he's gonna do some big things in Hollywood. It's hard to put into words what he does with his characters, but he truly is something that he's gonna be around for a long time, making some pretty awesome movies. So yeah, this one, Creed 3, he just steps up his level from Ant-Man, and it's pretty cool to watch. I think arguably this guy makes the movie. So anyway, let's see what else Chris has to say.
But people will probably ask where Rocky is. Now, when it comes to me, I don't need Rocky Balboa to be in a Creed movie anymore for me to want to see it and for me to be interested. The past 2 Creed films have absolutely established Adonis as a character that I want to watch. I don't need Rocky Balboa to be in the movie for me to be interested.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. It's something that I thought about too. I think having Rocky there kind of as a send-off for the first 2, not holding Michael B. Jordan's hand, but kind of bringing him into the fold as the main character of the Rocky series, Rocky Creed, was good for the first 2. But I think Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed really solidified himself in the first 2, and I think it was, whether or not there was some drama happening behind the scenes, and that's why Sylvester Stallone wasn't on it. To me, it doesn't matter because he wasn't needed as much. As hard as that is to say, because who doesn't love Sylvester Stallone? I don't think he was needed, so that's a really good point by Chris. Adonis Creed is a solidified main character in this movie, so yeah, totally agree. Okay, so next up, we of course have a bad-ish review from Cody Leach. Let's see what he has to say.
There's quite a few moments in the story of this movie that feels like convenient movie writing to get boxing matches together. And even as somebody that is not educated in the sport of boxing whatsoever outside of what I've seen in the Rocky franchise and a few others, even I was kind of turning my nose up and raising an eyebrow going, I don't think that's quite the way that it works. And I don't feel that we've had that problem in this franchise ever. And so that was something that kind of stuck out to me as a little bit of sloppy writing there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the way, trying not to give too much away, but I think the trailer gives it away. The way in which Dame comes and all of a sudden out of jail and is able to fight the former heavyweight champion of the world like nothing. Yes, there were some circumstances that put him in that place, but again, I'm the same way. I don't know much about the boxing world, but it was kind of a head scratch, and you're thinking, would that really happen in real life? I mean, it's not a real life movie. These aren't true events, but it kind of did take away from the accuracy. From what I understand, a pretty accurate movie in terms of the boxing world is kind of like, how does this guy all of a sudden get thrust into the world championship of boxing just on the merit of one man who would be Adonis? Yeah, that kind of took away from the overall realness of the movie. But yeah, let's see what else he has to say.
I absolutely champion, commend, and respect the hell out of the fact that Michael B. Jordan took some big swings creatively, stylistically to make this film definitively his own. But, and he has said this publicly numerous times in interviews, he has a love for anime, and he was trying to implement some anime style into the fight scenes, and it did not work for me.
I had to lean on my love of Japanese animation and the themes of that to kind of make this one creatively and visually look different.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of how effective it was in making the fight scenes better, that's up for debate. I mean, I'm not a anime fan in particular. I watched Dragon Ball Z growing up, and I don't not like anime. I just don't watch it. I think that the fact that Michael B. Jordan went that route and did an anime-inspired type of fight scene, at the very least gave us something different. We've had so many boxing movies, and to be honest, it gets tiring when you're at the third installment of this saga, and you have to do something. And I think that the anime wasn't that bad. It wasn't actual anime. It was kind of just background visual effects that Michael B. Jordan threw in there that were inspired by anime. You're not actually seeing like cartoon Goku throw in fireballs and all this stuff. It it wasn't enough to make it obvious. I didn't even realize that it was anime inspired until we saw Chris Stuckmann's video. So I think there had to be something different to set Creed 3 apart from all the long list of other boxing movies, and I think he did a good job. So let's continue. Let's see what else he has to say.
I think it is glaringly obvious that at least 10-15 minutes was cut out of this film between Act 2 and 3, and it is incredibly jarring. Like, even looking through the trailer footage when I was editing my little out of theater reaction short yesterday, I was seeing all these clips that were not in the movie, which just reinforced my thought that something was just missing. Like, they shoved Act 2 and Act 3 together, and it happened so fast, where the first 2 acts of the films are so deliberately paced, and you're slowly getting reveals, and you're spending time with the characters, and, you know, slowly, meticulously building things up and fleshing things out, and then boom, 3rd act, ending, final fight. And I was like, what the fuck? It was just such a pacing change, narratively and just visually, that it totally was just a jarring experience.
Yeah, so I agree with this one. There were a lot of kind of sub-stories within this movie that it seems like they just cut out and jumped and just allowed the audience to make assumptions. I mean, you had Drago, he made an appearance again, and they kind of just introduced him. He sparred a little bit with Adonis, and really that was it. You had I think his name was Chavez. You had the current light heavyweight champion in the movie. He kind of came in and they started to develop his story. It was interesting. And his mom in his corner, she was kind of like his manager. And then it just kind of poof, magic in the air, gone. We didn't really find out what happened with him. I feel like, I don't know if it was runtime and they were concerned about that, but I think it was just under 2 hours of a movie. So it is kind of, there are gaps in the story, and you kind of have to, I think it's just the audience makes assumptions about things, but yeah, it definitely kind of just jumped into the final fight scene, and you were kind of taken aback, like, all right, here we go, movie's almost ending. Let's see what they got, but yeah, let's see what else he has to say.
So all in all, guys, again, this is a very solid movie. I think if you're a fan of Rocky, if you're a fan of Creed, you're still gonna enjoy this for the most part. There's a lot of people that are gonna enjoy it way more than I did, just because of those very subjective opinions on some of the stylistic choices here that took me out and are going to be highlights for a lot of other people.
Yeah, so like he says, it's all subjective. I can tell that he liked the movie a lot, and he's struggling to, you know, offer up some kind of negative feedback or positive feedback, whatever you want to call it. But overall, I think that Creed, he gave it a 3.5 out of 5, so I don't know how he normally scores these movies, but overall, I think that his arguments were basically that there are a lot of parallels to other movies that you've seen, and then, of course, the fight scenes that he has issues with in terms of how they were shot and how they were edited. Again, very subjective stuff, guys, so I don't think that this is necessarily a bad review. It's one of the more negative reviews that are out there. But overall, I think that this guy really liked the movie. Okay, so we've seen both sides of the coin now, and I think it's safe to say that this movie, Creed 3, is worth your time. I think that it's the strongest of all 3 of the Creed movies. From bringing in a captivating character like Dame to having Michael B. Jordan both act and direct, I think this movie brings the most quality from start to finish, and that's doing it even without the godfather of these movies, these Rocky Creed movies, Sylvester Stallone. First off, Jonathan Majors. The best antagonists are the ones that create that internal struggle within the audience member, and Jonathan Majors does that with Dame. The little subtleties in Majors' characters drive this battle within the viewer. First of all, you can see that this guy has been locked up for a long time, and I mean, it all comes from things like his skittish demeanor and polite yet sheepish mannerisms to his timid and reluctant interaction with Adonis, seeing this guy live the life that he was supposed to be living. And it's easy to side with him, but he fights dirty. He manipulates the people around him, specifically Adonis, and he's coming in to take everything from him, so it's hard. Is it warranted? You have that internal struggle, and that's all created by an awesome antagonist played by Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors steals the show once again. He did it in Ant-Man Quantumania, and now he's come on to Creed 3, a legendary movie saga in Rocky, Creed, however you want to call it. And he just comes out and dominates the screen. Every time he's on the screen, you kind of perk up in your seat and you're ready to see what happens. It seems like what's going on with Jonathan Majors has happened before in Hollywood. I can think about Sam Worthington around 2009. He busted out on the scene with Avatar, and he had Clash of the Titans. And, you know, he's really doing that here with Ant-Man and now Creed 3. We even had Tom Hardy bust out into the scene. He was in Inception in 2015, and then Mad Max around that time. Legend, you know, it's these guys, these big screen presences that come out of absolutely nowhere, and they really put together some solid careers. So I'm really excited to see what's next for Jonathan Majors. And then not only that, we had Michael B. Jordan making his directorial debut on a big budget, legendary film movie series, and you know what, I think he did a great job. You know, there's a little, you know, tidbits of negativity coming from some of the critics saying the way he shot his fight scenes where it kind of took away from the overall effect of the movie, but I disagree. I think that having some type of unique take, especially on boxing movies where the final fight scenes are so saturated, you see the same thing every time. I was excited to see something different. And now that I know that it was all inspired from his love for anime, that makes it even cooler. So overall, this movie was pretty awesome. Okay, so that's all we have for you this week, folks. Please, if you'd be so kind, share your thoughts about Creed 3. We'd love to hear what you have to say. But other than that, take care, be kind, and have a nice day.